Good afternoon, Ms. Fayez.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to show you some text messages.
Judge, I would object. The witness has not yet been identified.
Could you just have her?
Sorry. Can you please say your name and spell it for the court reporter?
Sure. Sally Fayez, Sallyfayez.
And if I ask you any questions that don't come out right or you don't understand, just please tell me and I'll repeat the question.
Absolutely.
Now, you're the head of the victim services for Fairfax County. Is that
Correct. For the Fairfax County Police Department.
Okay. And in that role, do you fall within their command staff, I guess, MAP?
I do.
Okay. And so can you describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury of your organization and how it fits within the police department?
Sure. So we are a civilian unit within the police department. We fall under the Major Crimes Bureau. So there's 4 divisions in the Major Crimes Bureau. There's the Violent Crimes Division, the Criminal Investigation Division, the Cyber and Forensic Division, which are all sworn staff, and then the Victim Services Division, which is my division.
And so, and how many people do you have working for you?
17, plus we have interns, but 17 employed.
Okay. And when you, when something like what happened in this case happens, how do you get involved?
So my office is located on the 6th floor, which is where the rest of the violent crime detectives are. So it's not uncommon that something happens and I'm automatically made aware of it, which is what happened that day.
Okay, and so you get a call or you get a text or something like that, and then you roll to wherever you need to be?
No, so the day of the murders, I was already up at headquarters, and so I either received a phone call or a message, I'm not sure, letting me know that Valerie and Juliana were headed to headquarters, and did I have an advocate to sit with them?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Did I have a victim advocate that could go sit with them?
Okay, and did you arrange for that?
Correct.
Okay. At that point, is that victim advocate the victim advocate for them for the remainder of the case, or how does your organization work?
Yes, on homicides, the advocate that responds, usually we respond to a scene, but in this instance, we responded to headquarters, so they would keep the case. There's 2 different families, so I assigned one advocate to one family and another advocate later on to Joe Ryan's family.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that?
Doing,
Your job?
I've been with the department for 23 years, so I was an advocate for 7 years, and I've been the director for 16.
And so in terms of your interaction with the police department, what's your interaction on a daily basis if you're not otherwise responding to things?
I'm in command meetings, I'm in supervisor meetings, there's daily dialogue about cases. I'm obviously making sure that my unit is squared away and going where they need to go. If there's a call out, we have a text thread of who's going to respond to a call out. It's really just the day-to-day of supervising the division.
And the command staff meetings you talked about, who's attending those?
The command staff meetings are all majors and above, majors, deputy chiefs, assistant chiefs, and I believe captains.
And are you on a level of a deputy chief or a major? Or?
I would be considered the professional equivalent of a major.
Okay.
So I answer to a deputy chief.
And who during this time frame would you answer to?
To Deputy Chief Bruce at the time.
Okay.
Well, at the time of the murder, it would have been Deputy Chief Reef, Jeff Reef.
Okay. And I think timing-wise, Deputy Chief Bruce came in just after this incident, or he was actually a captain?
He was the captain
Okay.
during the incident, yes.
So you had interaction with him when he
The day
wasn't
of.
the deputy chief?
When he was the captain, yes.
Okay. And then when he was deputy chief, you answered to him?
Correct.
Okay. And so the command staff meetings, can you describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what those are without any specifics?
It's just to ensure that the command team of the Fairfax County Police Department know what is going on within each of the subdivisions. It's really just a conversation of what's happening within the department of all of the rank and file.
Okay. I'm going to show you some text messages and ask you if you can identify them.
Okay.
This is marked as Defense Exhibit 92.
Okay.
Do you have any recollection of that?
From looking at it, but no.
Okay, no, nothing on the page stands out for you?
No. I mean, I see that was from 2024, but otherwise, no.
Okay. Is it common to have jail call recordings in your communications with Deputy Chief Bruce, and who would be the other person? Was that Lieutenant Giasio?
I only see myself and Deputy Chief Bruce on here.
Okay. Would that be a common occurrence, the jail calls from a case?
Yes. I mean, it's not that it's every day, but if you're asking, is that okay that a text message included a jail call? Yes.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm sure it's okay. I just was curious if that's just something that would be naturally flowing from your position and his position.
Yes.
Okay. And is that something that are you ever involved in listening to jail calls, or just when it's sent to you in this kind of format?
I have in the past, yes.
Okay, and in this case, have you done any listening of jail calls?
No.
Other than this?
No.
Okay, and so, it appears there's a conversation going on. What's the nature of that conversation?
There's several conversations going on. Which one are you referring to?
Actually, let me just, if I can just pause for 1 second. Your Honor, I move this in as Defense Exhibit number 92.
Any objection?
Judge, I think the witness testified that she doesn't recognize it.
All right, you want to lay a foundation?
In terms of your communications with Deputy Chief Bruce, would text messages be a common way that you would communicate?
Absolutely. I think that's the common way to communicate with most people.
And so, other than personal communications, would text messages, including jail calls or other discussions about perhaps defendants, would that be something that you would talk about?
Yes.
Okay. And in this case, is that what that looks like?
Without knowing what that call was, no.
Okay.
I wouldn't know.
What about the next statements regarding that?
Again, unfortunately, since it was 2024, there's not a lot of context of what this is for me to know.
And so you're based upon what you know right there, you're saying you're not certain that this was a communication that you had made?
Well, I obviously made it because my name is in there, but I really don't remember that specific text message.
And I think that's
But I'm not
understandable.
saying I did not do it.
That's certainly understandable with text messages. Your Honor, I'd move that in as Defense Exhibit 92.
Judge, I wouldn't object to its admission at this point, but obviously the witness's testimony would be limited by her
Well, I
recollection.
understand that, but as far as admissibility, 92 is in evidence. You want to publish?
Now, down the page of this message, I'll point to this. What are you saying there, and does that indicate that somebody else is in that message?
Giacchio, Lieutenant Giacchio.
Okay, does that help you remember any of this?
No.
Would it be common for you, Deputy Chief Bruce and Lieutenant Giacchio, be on a three-way text?
Yes, I've been on text messages with deputy chiefs and supervisors in the past.
Okay, and these are the kind of things that you discuss when you're talking to those two?
Well, if I'm reminding Lieutenant Giacchio to ask people to do something, yes.
Okay, and how about talking about things like arresting him will put him over?
Again, I'm sure we have in the past. I just don't know the context of this.
Okay. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to review what has been marked as Defense Exhibit number 94. Do you remember that?
I do.
Okay, and what's the significance of the date in remembering that?
Friday, October 25th,
Yes.
the arrest of Brendan Banfield. Is that what you're asking me?
No, I don't think, well, let me just do this, and then we can talk about it. Your Honor,
Sure.
I'd like to enter this as Defense Exhibit 94.
Any objection?
No, Judge.
94.
It appears it's a conversation with Deputy Chief Bruce, and it's relating to some message that the chief had written.
Yes.
And do you know what the significance of that is?
I believe after Juliana's proffer.
Okay. And you knew that to be October 25th, correct?
I only see it at the top of the text message.
But did you know that to be October 25th?
Not that I would have recalled, no.
Okay. And in this text message, you're talking about not taking no for an answer, correct?
Correct.
And what's that relating to?
It appears to say not taking no for an answer, so we're all grabbing a drink next week.
Okay, and do you know the context of that?
Probably just saying we're all going to grab a drink next week.
Okay, but not anything with regard to the case?
No, not that I would read from that.
Okay. Ma'am, I'm going to have you look at what has been marked as Defense Exhibit 98. Do you recognize that?
I don't recognize the text message, no.
Okay. Are you involved in that text message?
By looking at it, I can't say yes or no.
Okay, you don't see, okay, I'll withdraw that. Ma'am, I'm going to have you look at what's been identified as Exhibit 99. Do you recognize that?
No, I don't.
Are you not part of that?
It doesn't appear so, so I would know if I was.
And you don't have any independent memory of it?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'll withdraw that. Ma'am, this is Defendant's Exhibit 106. Do you recognize that?
I do.
Okay. Is that a text that you were involved with?
Yes.
And just for the sake of identifying people, which color were you on that? Gray or blue?
Gray.
Okay. Your Honor, I move that in as Commonwealth's Exhibit 106.
Judge objected to, that was not identified by whoever the other party is in the email.
That's correct. The other witness said they didn't recall, so I have to sustain the objection to 106.
I'm going to ask you to review what has been marked as Defense Exhibit 107. Do you recall that text message? Or can you identify that text message?
Identify it as in,
As a message you sent or as a message you were part of?
my name is up top, so I would say that it was from me.
Okay, do you know who you were communicating with?
Not just by looking at it, no.
Your Honor, I'd move that in as Defense Exhibit 107.
Judge Reed to object.
The objection.
Again, it calls for hearsay.
Right.
Ms. Baez is the person who was the recipient. She cannot identify who the communicator was.
And I believe the other witness said it wasn't him. So I have to sustain the objection to 107.
Very well, Your Honor. Now, ma'am, when you're in the command staff meetings, what kind of role do you have in those meetings?
My role really is to make sure that the victims and the survivors are a part of the conversation.
Okay, and so are you giving updates on things, or how do you engage with the command staff, the police command staff?
I think it really just depends. Are you talking about in this instant, or are you just talking about in general?
Generally.
I think it just depends on what the case is about. Sometimes if we have a case where a case went to court, then we would update the command staff on what happened with the verdict. If there's a case where we believe the family needed some awareness when there comes to a Public Affairs Bureau release, we work directly with our Public Affairs Bureau command staff to make sure that families are notified in a dignified way that something's going to be released.
Now, specifically with regard to this case, were you ever involved in the theory of catfishing?
Yes.
Did you suggest catfishing?
I did not suggest catfishing. I suggested that it be proven that it's not catfishing.
And when in time was that in relation to the killing of Christine Banfield?
I think as time went on, it became apparent that that was a possibility. And so are you asking when I started to think it, or?
Well, where did this theory come from? Were you the one who started it?
Did I start the theory? No.
Okay, when did the theory become a discussion topic in context of the time that the...
I think throughout the investigation, depending on what meeting you were in.
How soon after the killing of Christine Banfield did that come up, is what I'm asking.
I think it came up once they were in a hotel and our intel detectives heard her call, ask if she could call her mommy.
I'm sorry,
I think there were things that came out a couple of days after the murder that made people question whether this was a catfish or not.
Okay, so within days after the murder,
Correct.
did you believe that it was a catfish?
I didn't believe that it wasn't one, but it was on the table that it could have been, absolutely.
Okay, and was that something that you discussed in command staff meetings?
I think that evidence and investigative avenues were discussed, but the actual word catfish, no,
Okay.
until later.
So was it discussed in terms of assuming someone's identity, or how would it have been discussed in those meetings before saying catfish?
I think it would have been discussed as, has everything been done to prove one way or the other? Was this a setup or was it not?
And is that something you were bringing to the table, or is this something that?
I think it was a group discussion.
A group discussion? Okay. And so within days, the discussion turned to catfishing? And that's
Not
something-
within days, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My view, within probably a few days, was a question of what really went on.
So in your mind, within a few days, catfishing was a possibility?
A possibility, yes.
And did you communicate that possibility to the people that were in the command staff meetings?
I'm sure we all were having the same conversations because I wasn't the only one that thought that.
I mean, is that something that you would oftentimes talk about in these cases?
Yes, well, I don't think we've had a case like this, but I would have a conversation about the case that's being presented, absolutely.
Okay, well, I guess for purposes of your memory, would there be other times? I mean, if this is a pretty big case, and if you had suggested catfishing, that would be memorable.
I think you're confused as far as what I did. Whether I thought it was or not, it's not that I suggested it. There were meetings where plenty of people above me that believed the same thing. It wasn't just a Sally catfish, if that's what you're asking.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to get an idea of when you started talking about it as catfish. And I think you'd said you thought about it within a few days, but when did it become a viable theory to talk about in the command staff meetings?
I think you're confusing command staff meetings. What meetings are you referring to?
The ones that you just described where you're with command staff.
Those are different meetings than just a normal meeting talking about cases
Yeah,
in the
that's what
Major
I'm
Crimes
asking
Bureau.
about. We'll talk about the normal meetings. In the command staff meetings, when was it that you started talking about catfishing?
Well, it was never discussed in an actual command staff meeting because that's the entire command staff, so it wasn't discussed then.
Okay. Were there breakouts?
Move that. I'm sorry.
Were there breakout meetings of the people that were involved? I'm just trying to understand where we're going.
And I'm trying to understand where you're going. I'm sorry, I really don't know what you're asking me.
So the only meetings that we've talked about at this point were command staff meetings that you said that you're involved with as one of the command staff personnel, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And what I'm trying to get to is when was it that catfishing was a theory amongst the meetings that you were attending, whether they're command staff or other meetings, whatever meetings you're attending?
Again, I think they're ongoing. There's meetings on that floor between the supervisors and the commanders on that floor. That's a different meeting than a command staff meeting.
It's not so important in my question as to what kind of a meeting it is. What my question's really directed to is when did you start adopting that and talking about this in meetings?
I don't have an actual date for you.
When was it in comparison to the returns on DNA, digital forensics, fingerprints, anything like that?
I think what happened is every single time some piece of evidence came forward that made you question what really happened, then that theory would come back up.
Okay, and do you know the time frame on that?
No, I don't.
Would it be a year?
Again, I think when you have an investigation like this, there's constantly meetings, there's constant conversations about it. So
Okay.
there were times where, hey, could it have been this? Are you looking at this? Versus talking about some other angle.
Okay, would it have been a month after the incident?
Judge asked and answered.
Sustained. And if you could move the microphone a little closer to you, Mr. Carroll. Thank you.
So you don't remember when you would have talked about catfishing in a meeting?
The actual word catfish, no, I wouldn't remember that. I can remember when questions would come up about what happened that day.
Okay,
Yes.
and maybe it's my terminology that's a problem. When was it in meetings that you talked about the theory of what happened that day in the meetings?
It wasn't necessarily me starting those meetings saying that. It would be a meeting for an update on the case or what was going on with the case. And so everybody was having that kind of conversation. It was kind of a give and take.
Okay.
Which is normal in these kind of situations.
Sure, I'm just trying to understand. And so catfishing wasn't a comment, or wasn't a name that it was given, but there were issues regarding the investigation. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. And and I understand you're saying it evolves into something. When was it that catfishing was brought up as the...
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained. Next
You
question.
don't know?
Next question.
Okay. On the day of the incident, were you involved with Brendan and Christine's daughter being brought to the safe spot?
What do you mean?
To be, it was in a place where an interview took place?
No,
Okay. Were you involved with any sort of discussion about trying to detain my client?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
Were you involved on the day of the killing? Were you involved with anyone trying to detain my client at that point?
No,
Were you involved, were you at the headquarters during the
I
time?
was, yes.
And were you in the presence of Juliana or Valerie?
Juliana and Valerie were in one of our waiting areas where we have a victim waiting room with the advocate, not me.
Okay. And did you have any say in any sort of interviews of Juliana or the child?
No.
They were waiting there? Did those occur?
Not that I remember, but I wasn't there for that.
Okay. Was there any concern from you and the people that you work with about my client being released at that
Judge,
time?
objection calls for speculation. She can speak as to what was in her mind, but asking about others.
You want to rephrase the question?
What, if anything, did you, what, if anything, were you worried about with my client being released that day?
Valerie's safety.
And did you do anything to further that worry that you've just told for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Yes, I had received a call from Captain Bruce and Lieutenant Weeks, who was the homicide supervisor, and they were on the scene, and the concern was
Okay.
that he
Your
would
Honor,
not.
just, that's not responsive to my question, but
You asked her what she did.
and she talked about a phone call.
Okay, all right. Well,
What did you do?
I ended up getting a hotel for everybody, so they would all be in one hotel together.
Okay. And including my client?
Correct,
Okay.
and Juliana.
And at any point in that process, did you discuss detaining my client?
No, I have no authority to ask anyone to detain.
I understand, but you have the ability to discuss.
Objection argumentative.
Do you have the ability to discuss that with the police?
No,
So in terms of where you're concerned, you can't communicate to the police your concerns?
I absolutely can.
Okay, and in this case, did you?
I don't understand the question.
Did you discuss your concerns with the police on the day of the incident
But what concerns are you talking about?
about my client being left out?
Again, I don't understand the question. I want to answer it, I just don't understand it.
Okay, and that's the case with some of my questions, so let me see if I can get it straight. The question of my client being detained or being released, was that a worry for you?
At the time, your client wasn't even in headquarters.
So you didn't have anything to judge that by?
No,
Okay. Did there come a time where you were concerned and you wanted him to be detained?
no.
So there's no communications between you and the police about that?
If I can go back to my conversation with Captain Bruce and Lieutenant Weeks, was
Well-
where I was going with that.
Well, let's just stay with what we're doing right now. I'm talking about your concern about my client being detained, and I think you've answered that you had no concern at that time, correct?
No, it just wasn't an issue at the time.
Okay, when did it become an issue for you?
It never became an issue.
Okay, so it never really came up in terms of trying to detain him?
No, not
Okay.
that day, no.
Okay,
Is it-
that's-
If that's what you're asking.
Yeah, that day.
Okay, no.
Now, do you know how long it was before he was reunited with his daughter Valerie that day?
I don't know. I know when I went to get everybody a hotel, and they were together then.
Okay, and how long after that, the incident was that?
I wouldn't know the time.
Was it the same day?
It was the same day.
Okay. And were you, so you arranged the hotel so the family could stay outside of the home?
Correct.
And is that normal for your position when there's a crime scene, an active crime scene?
Yes.
Okay. And is it normal for there to be surveillance going on in a hotel like that?
I can't answer that. That's not my wheelhouse.
Okay, so you didn't have anything to do with
No.
having surveillance?
No.
Okay. Court's indulgence.
All right, yes, sir.
Your Honor, I don't have any further questions.
Cross-examination?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Just briefly, can you explain what it was that raised the question of Christine Banfield having been set up?
Repeat the question. I'm sorry.
Sure. What was it? So Mr. Carroll went through with you repeatedly about when did catfishing become a topic of conversation. My question was one you were asked, but we're not able to finish answering. What was it that happened that raised in your mind the question of Christine having been set up?
At the hotel? So from my understanding, we had an intel detective in the lobby of the hotel that we had everybody in, and she had asked Juliana, can I call you mommy now?
When you say she, who are we
I'm
talking
sorry,
about?
Valerie. Said, "Can I-"
Valerie, Christine's daughter?
Yes, said, can I call you mommy now? Juliana, again, I don't remember her answer. She said yes. And then she said, are you going to marry my daddy? And Juliana said, I wish.
Okay. Thank you. I don't
Sure.
have any other questions, Judge.
All right, redirect? Or is this witness subject to recall? All right, you're free to go, ma'am. Thank you. Your next witness?
I call Detective Miller.
Detective Miller again?
Yes.
All right, Detective Miller? He's already under oath.
Bear with me, Detective Miller. Sir, you had an opportunity to listen to some of the witnesses today, specifically Lieutenant Giacchio, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And he indicated that he reviewed the digital forensics in this case, correct?
I believe he said not in its entirety.
Okay. Well, in his testimony, what did you hear him say?
That he reviewed things with me.
Okay. And the things that he reviewed, do you have any idea what those were?
Off the top of my head, no, there was a large amount of data in this case.
Okay. And in fact, you extracted nearly 60 devices, correct?
It was a large number of devices, yes.
You don't remember whether it was 60 or not?
It was in that neighborhood.
Okay. And when you, so whatever data that you had extracted that you chose to share with him, would that have been the raw data that you extracted?
I believe everything provided was in report form.
Okay. So he didn't get into the level of detail that you get into in your analysis?
I would not imagine so. I don't recall raw data specifically.
Well, let me ask you this. You heard him testify. Did he ever sit down with you and ask you to go through your work?
Judge, at this point in time, I would object. I believe counsel is trying to impeach his own witness, Detective Giacchio, with this witness.
I'm not sure, but I'll overrule the objection for now.
Okay.
We'll see where we go.
Could you ask the question again, please?
Did you ever sit down with Detective Giacchio and explain your work that resulted in the executive summary?
I don't recall if I did it in its entirety.
Okay. Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury of the times that you did it? What were you telling him and showing him, and how he arrived at conclusions?
Well, again, it's a summary, and I believe at the top of it, it qualifies that it's not every artifact involved in this case.
Okay.
So there would be times we would go over aspects that there were questions about.
Okay. And did you ever agree with the things that he was saying about it?
Your
In
Honor,
what-
objection, it's vague.
All right, if you want to rephrase it.
Yes. Did you ever agree with his conclusions relating to your work?
Objection again, Judge, still vague. There were so many conclusions we've heard testified to.
Give more
Okay.
specifics.
Say, for example, on January 9th of 2023, the analysis of the opening of the email account. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and did you go into your conclusions and how you arrived there with him in any of those meetings?
Yes, I went through the devices that were involved based on the data extractions and the warrant returns, et cetera.
Okay, and I know you did because you made the decisions, but I'm asking, did you go through that with Lieutenant Giacchio on that specific day?
I believe that was one of the items we went over.
Okay, and was that something that he agreed with you on?
There was heavy discussion about being able to attribute activity to a particular person. And I believe I stated that in this field, barring external corroboration, it is difficult to attribute activity to a person. But given that devices were known to travel with somebody, it's logical to look for aspects where dominion and control may have been lost.
Okay, and in discussing that with him, did you find that at that time?
Objection as to form, Judge, find what?
That the devices, I'm sorry,
Okay, that's fine.
did you find what you just described, that the devices were separate from the person during the January 9th?
Again, without external corroboration, I can't determine the actual person behind the device.
Okay, I understand that, but your findings were that there's no evidence.
Objection asked and answered. He just indicated that he could not.
All right, I'll sustain
Fine.
the objection. Next question.
In terms of that specific day, did Lieutenant Giacchio end up agreeing with your conclusions?
I would say that There was disagreement over the way I had phrased the document.
The way you phrased it? Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
And so not relating to your analysis of the data? Am I to understand that?
Can you clarify your question? I'm a little
So,
confused.
I'm just following up on your previous answer, and I'm trying to clarify the meeting between you and Lieutenant Giaccio relating to the January 9th, 2003 artifacts.
Judge, that's not a question. Objection.
You phrase it as a question.
Yes. Just what I said. Did he agree with you as to those artifacts on that day?
An objection asked and answered. The witness testified that there was a disagreement over the way the document phrased.
Overrule the objection, if you can answer it, that's fine.
I would have the same answer. There were disagreements over the way that I had written that document.
Okay, so on that particular portion of that document, there were disagreements. And my question, I think, that started this all was that relating to the data that you extracted and interpreted, or the characterization of it?
Again, I would say it was, the disagreement was over what was on the paper.
Okay. And so when, in terms of that specific section, was there agreement at any point between the two of you?
There were a lot of things on that document, even on that day. Like as far as what the devices were doing, I think we were all in agreement the devices were doing what the devices were doing.
Right. But he wasn't in agreement with your conclusions.
Judge asked and answered.
Sustained. Next question, please.
I appreciate, Judge. I'm not sure that it
It
was.
was asked and answered, sustained.
Okay. So let's move on to another day that was a crucial day in this catfishing, January 23rd.
Objection to counsel's testifying.
Okay. How about January 23rd? Did you do an analysis of the devices on that day?
I am trying to recall the specific devices done on that day. Again, there were a lot of devices processed on a large number of days.
Do you have your reports with you?
I believe they're,
Is it all right, Judge, if he can retrieve that?
I think
Do you-
they're just on the front, they're on the front.
thank you. January 23rd, what year, sir?
2023.
20. I'm sorry, was the question a device that I processed on that date?
Yes.
January 2023 would
No,
have
I'm
been prior
sorry,
to the
it would have
homicide.
been, it would, the artifacts relating to that date.
Do you know which device in particular? I mean, there are a lot of devices.
So I guess as a guide, I was trying to break it down as to specific days, but we can use your executive summary if you'd like to, and then go through it that way.
I
Do you
mean,
have that
whatever.
available to you?
Yes, I have it here.
Okay. I'm just pulling it up. Court's indulgence for one moment. Do you have that handy, Mr. Detective Miller?
I have one in front of me, yes.
Okay. So let me ask you this. In terms of all the devices in this investigation, did you image all of those?
I extracted data from all the devices, yes.
Okay. And is that essentially imaging, or am I using the wrong term?
Imaging would imply a, depending on the circumstance, a bit for bit copy.
Okay. And in your extraction, did you extract all of the devices in what you deem a forensically sound manner, consistent with your training and best practices?
Yes.
Did you process the extracted data using forensically approved and verified tools?
Yes.
listening to the testimony before, Lieutenant Giacchio testified that he received data extractions from you. Is that correct?
I don't recall his exact phrasing.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you last.
I don't recall the exact phrasing of his answer.
Okay. Did you ever give him data extractions that came from you?
Data was provided, I know portable cases and Cellbrite reader reports. A lot of data was provided to a lot of people in this case.
Okay, specifically based on what Detective or Lieutenant Giacchio said. Do you remember what you had given him?
Not specifically.
And I think in previous testimony, you had testified that you'd given your data extractions to the lead homicide detective, correct?
Yes.
And is that just part of the routine of making sure he has the full case?
Yes, it's important to pass the data on.
And did you provide data to Lieutenant Giacchio and the detectives in the form of a magnet portable case
Yes.
and/or Cellbrite reader formats?
Yes.
Okay. Did those productions contain the same data you extracted from the respective devices and reviewed during your analysis on this case?
I believe so.
So I'm going to try to show you something here. Sir, do you see something on your screen?
I do.
Okay. Are those examples of the data that you provided to Lieutenant Giacchio?
There's screen captures and what appear to be a Word document that appear to have come from those, yes.
Okay. And
Judge, I apologize, it's probably just me, but is there any way we can zoom? I can't read a single word on the page.
Can you zoom that a little?
let me see if I can do that.
There you go.
Much better, thank
Is that a little
you.
better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Sir, what is this?
This appears to be a screen capture from a portable case in a Word document.
Okay, are these the things that you provided to the lead detective and Lieutenant Giacchio?
These screen captures?
Or what these screen captures contain?
All portable cases and reports generated in this case were provided to Detective Bryant and others.
Okay. And do you know, were these same items provided in discovery? I'm just scrolling down.
I believe they were.
I'm just going to continue scrolling down so you see them. All of those items? These are all the devices that you went through?
I don't believe it's all of them, but these are devices I went through, yes.
Okay, and are those devices that you provided to Detective Bryant and I guess based on his testimony, Lieutenant Giacchio?
Yes, these were provided to Detective Bryant.
Okay, but were these the things that you gave to Lieutenant Giacchio?
I believe he had access to all of them.
Okay, so you didn't actually give them to him, he just had access as supervisor?
I don't recall what I provided him directly.
Okay. Okay, so he had access, you don't know if you provided it?
Judge asked and answered.
Sustain.
Your Honor, court's indulgence for one moment. Do you have the portable cases for these with you?
I do not.
Where do they reside now?
Right now, I believe they're on hard drives back at headquarters.
Okay. And would you have access to those in order to move them into evidence
Right now, no.
or in the future?
I have access.
Objection. I'm not sure.
Everyone approach.
Thank you.
Your Honor, you see that on the screen?
Yes.
Sir, can you identify those? Or can you see them?
You might have to make it a little bigger. Or maybe you can identify it as it is, I'm not sure.
This appears to be a screen capture of messages from one of the reports.
Okay. And are you familiar with the data that went into this screen capture?
Is in the data extracted from the device? Yes.
Okay. And what, if anything, do you see in this series of communications?
I see an item number titled Christine phone, and then I see messages below that.
Okay, and this is what date? Sorry. What day is identified in this?
January 9th,
Okay.
2023.
And is that one of the important days in this case?
Yes.
Okay, what's the significance of January 9th?
That was the day the Gmail account was created.
Okay, and do you, what can you conclude by looking at this screenshot?
That messages were sent using this device.
And can you identify who the other device is?
I see a phone number.
Do you know that from your analysis of this case?
Not off the top of my head.
Do you know who was on WhatsApp of the people that were using devices in this case?
Multiple people were using WhatsApp.
Do you know who? Other than Christine, who else communicated with WhatsApp with her?
Juliana.
Okay. In this situation, do you have any conclusions as to who Christine is communicating with?
Objection asked and answered. He indicated he doesn't remember the phone number.
Overruled.
In context, it would appear to be Juliana.
Okay.
And just for the record, I believe you had marked that prior to as defendant's 86.
86. Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, do you see anything on the screen?
No. If you'd like your expert to help you.
Sir, do you see something on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Can you identify the communication that you see there?
It appears to be Facebook messages.
And what, have you seen these in your own independent investigation?
I would imagine at some point in the last almost 3 years.
Okay. And when you were looking at these, specifically these, what, actually, let me have you look at, what is that?
It looks like a screen capture of details and artifact information.
And how would you extract an artifact like that?
A single artifact?
This particular artifact?
Well, the device would have had data extracted from it, and then that would have been put into a tool.
And this particular artifact, what can you gain from that?
Just what's on the page right now.
That, so can you go through that?
Objection. He's asking for the witness to testify to the document if he wishes to admit it. That would be the first step.
Your Honor, I'd move to admit this
Do you have a number for me?
as, I do have a number.
The 109, I guess, if that's what you want to do.
109.
Any objection to 109?
Yes, Judge, relevance.
Overruled, I'll allow 109 in evidence.
And Judge, if I may, it's a document from 2021, and we don't know who it's purported to be between.
I overruled the objection, 109 in evidence.
Thank you.
Look now, okay, no. So what number is this one then? I just want to make sure I get the record clear.
Yeah, why don't we do this, if we can, Judge? Can we make this one 109?
Okay,
And the other one
10.
110?
All right, so 110, subtraction. This is 109. Any objection to 109?
Same objection.
All right, overruled, 109 in evidence. Okay, I
Um,
think we're on the same page now.
Sir, do you see the connection between the communications here and the extractions? And I can go to the next page.
Again, these are screen captures from what I would assume would be a portable case, but I don't have the whole thing here.
Okay. And that's 110?
110.
And what do you see there?
Details of artifact information.
Now, when you, do you see the, what appears to be a conversation going on?
Would this be 111 then?
111.
Okay.
Yes, I see messages.
And in terms of the messages, what, what's the, are any of the devices that you had extracted present on these communications?
I'm sorry, can you ask the question again?
Are any of the devices that you extracted data from present on these communications?
I see an item number and a label.
And are you talking about the yellow or the blue?
The blue, where it says local user,
Okay, and the label on that?
it has an item number and says Christine phone.
Now, did you hear testimony regarding windows today or even days before?
I recall windows being mentioned.
Okay. And in this communication, in your expert opinion, can you conclude a date as to the communication?
Judge, I'm going to object to the witness testifying as to the contents of the
Do
document.
you wish to have this in evidence?
Yes.
Any objection?
Judge, I would object, it's hearsay, we do not have the speaker testifying.
111, Your Honor. This would be for, as an extraction that he's identified.
I understand, but there's still hearsay in it, is what the objection is.
Well, Your Honor, I would say that this is an extraction through digital forensics, through sound principles, which he's testified to.
Right, I understand that, but inside that, there is hearsay. So I'll sustain the objection as to hearsay.
Okay. Sir, do you see what is described as a discussion about windows?
I do.
And when does that take place?
Judge, same objection.
He hasn't moved it in yet.
Correct.
I'll allow that question.
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
Again, Judge, the objection is to the witness testifying as to the contents of the document.
I understand, I'll allow that question.
What date is the,
It just
oh,
lost
it just went out. I think I have a power issue.
Can you use another computer?
Is yours? The win. Sir, the question was, before we lost power, the date that these communications were taking place.
And Judge, to clarify the objection, he's asking for information contained within the document, which is hearsay. If he's asking about the date they're
I'm gonna
extracted,
allow
yes.
the date. Your rejection is
Okay,
overruled.
thank you.
6/28/2022.
Would this be 113 then?
113.
Okay.
Sir, based upon your extractions, based upon the information that you looked at from Christine's phone, do you recall this?
I don't recall doing a dive specifically into Windows.
Into the specific topic of Windows?
Windows came up much later in the investigation.
Okay. And so when the Windows came up was during the initial recant in October, correct?
Yes,
Was that the first time you'd heard about Windows?
I believe so.
Had you been involved, would you have been in a position to advise whomever was there as to what the content was on her phone?
Possibly.
Okay. Were you ever asked about it?
I think later on, Windows came up. I can't recall the exact artifacts that I looked at, though.
And they came up because, well, let me ask you this. Did they come up because they were taken, the orders and things like that were taken off of my client's laptop?
I recall conversations with Detective Bryant about Windows that came up later in the investigation.
Okay, and did you do anything to determine whether that was what Juliana Peres Magalhães had said was true relating to the artifacts that you looked at?
I don't recall specific artifacts that I looked at relating to that.
If you had been involved when she first said that, or been in the room, would that have been an opportunity to inform the questioner?
Judge, objection is to form. I don't think it's clear, inform the objectioner as to what.
Okay. In the room when the recant on October 25th, if you had been in the room, would you have had the ability to inform any questioner as to what the specifics of the window purchases were?
I don't think at that time I would have been prepared to do that.
If you had heard that for the first time, as many did, would you have been able to track that down?
Judge, I object to the form of the question. What is that?
Would you have been able to track down information relating to the window purchase?
Yes.
And what would it take in order for you to confirm or deny what she was saying in the recant?
Going through the devices, keyword searches, things like that.
Okay. And in this instance, do you see the writing on the screen?
I do.
I think that would be 113, Your Honor.
Yes, 113.
Is that what was done in this situation?
I don't recall making this screen capture.
Can you look at it and tell whether or not that's a search for Windows?
I could assume it is, but since I didn't create the screen capture, I don't know definitively how that came to be.
Sir, can you see the communication with what it says is Christine's phone on December 3rd, 2022?
Yes.
And the communication?
Judge, objection is to form.
I'll sustain the objection as
Okay.
to form.
What does this artifact indicate to you?
And for the record, that's 115.
115.
Okay.
Again, it's a screen capture of artifact information. Says summary windows, which is highlighted in yellow.
And is that indicative of a search for windows?
Again, I didn't create the screen capture, so I can't state how that came to be there.
Well, in terms of the standards that you live up to as an expert in digital forensics, is this something that you would require of yourself if you're doing a screen grab?
Objection is to form is what something he would require of himself.
The item that's on 115?
The artifact information here?
Yes.
When going through artifacts, yes, I would look at a breakdown of the data surrounding it.
And what can you opine about what you see there?
That it's a screen capture with a summary of windows. There's an email address associated with the calendar. Time zone is UTC. It's a calendar event.
And do you recognize the email that's being used?
I do.
Okay. And what email is that?
cbanfieldrn@gmail.com.
Okay. And is that her email, her personal email? as far
Objection,
as you
Judge,
know?
is that whose email?
Is that Christine Banfield's email?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move into evidence. Sorry. Defense exhibits 110, 115.
110 is already in evidence.
One-
111 was.
110 is admitted, 111 was already offered and denied.
Offered, sustained, yes, the objection was sustained. So we're up to, you want 115, which
Yes,
is
Your
the
Honor.
last artifact.
Yes, 115.
115, no objection. 114, objection. Hearsay.
He only offered 115.
Oh, I thought he said 110 through.
I initially said that.
Okay, so 115 is in evidence. We can go there. All right, now, do you want 112? Are you looking for the other ones as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, let's go to 112. I just got to get it on the screen. Can you get 112 on the screen for me? Because I believe that's 109, 110, 111. That's 112.
112.
112.
Objection, hearsay.
All right, the objection's hearsay.
Your Honor, I would, may we approach? Sure.
sustain 112 as hearsay. Okay.
Sir, do you recognize the data from this particular slide, slide 1?
For the record, we'll mark that as 116.
116.
It appears to be a screenshot of the cprn920gmail.com.
And what's the date?
January 9th, 2023.
Yes. Now, what are the 3 entries there as best you can tell?
They just appear to be potentially emails with subject lines. One of them is blank.
And the other?
One says pics, the other says pics 2.
And is this the email account that's alleged to have been created by someone other than Christine Banfield,
Yes.
based upon your investigation? And what is this that you see here?
Screen capture of what appear to be logins with IP addresses and dates.
Okay. And do you, specifically January 9th, do you see that login?
I do.
And what does that indicate to you, and what device does that indicate is logging in?
Looks like a Samsung SMG 991U with Android 13.
And do you know whose device has that identifying characteristic?
If memory serves, 2 devices have that pedigree.
Have SMG991U?
If memory serves, Mr. Banfield's IRS phone also has that same, it's the same model number.
And that was 117.
117.
And now this is 118?
118.
Okay. This would be,
Sorry, Judge.
is that 119 now?
Yes.
Oh, you went back to 118.
I went back to 118.
Okay,
I think I hit 119.
All right, that's fine. 118.
Detective Miller, what do you see here in this slide?
Again, screen capture with IP addresses with what appears to be login information.
And is there anything you can get from that login information?
The user agent is on the right.
And how is that being logged in?
With a Windows device.
Can you tell whether that's a phone or a laptop based upon what you see there?
From what I see there, it would be a laptop or a computer running Windows.
Okay. Let's look at 119. Oops. Can you identify what that is?
I'm sorry, Judge, I can't even begin.
I don't know if you can make that a little bigger maybe so you could see some of it.
I'll give that.
There you go.
We'll just look down the center column.
Okay.
Can you see that, sir?
Yes.
And what does it show? What does it indicate to you?
Again, it appears to be a screen capture with emails and artifacts.
And is there anything there that can identify what device was being used?
Not that I'm picking up from the screen capture immediately.
And is it any information that you can look at that can identify what device is being used?
Judge, I think asked and answered.
The same question you just asked.
Okay. Or what, how the, what email is being used?
I see the email address of cbrn920@gmail.com.
Okay. And what do these appear to be to you?
Email records.
Communications? And who are they
Sure.
from?
I see a lot of FetLife, and then, oh, they moved.
Oh, sorry, were you still looking at that? I was just trying to give you something else to look at.
Nope, that's fine. We can,
Do you want to scroll down?
if you would like to. Yes, I see FetLife.
And FetLife?
Yes, FetLife.
And more FetLife? Can you tell from the screenshot whether these, so are you satisfied that they're all FetLife? Just based on scrolling around?
Objection, I think that's a mischaracterization of the evidence.
I'll allow the question if you can answer.
I can see what's in the screen capture, but again, I did not create the screen capture.
Okay. But if you were trying to create a screen capture from digital forensics, this would be the form in which it would come?
It could be, depends on what I'm trying to take a capture of.
Is there a way for you to determine whether these are still active or they've been deleted, anything like that?
From this screen capture?
Yes. I can move it if you need me to.
I'm not seeing a deletion marker in this.
I'm sorry, what? The location marker?
You asked if I could tell if something was deleted from what I'm looking at.
Yes. Do you need me to move it to someplace where you could tell on this screen grab?
I don't think this screen capture has everything in its entirety.
What makes you say that?
If you scroll back up to the top. So if I were looking at it, like in a portable case or in actual Axiom or something like that, I would be able to see all of the data fields, but since I didn't create this screen capture, I don't recall if there's any data fields beyond what was taken in the screen capture.
What kind of data fields would you include in your screen capture?
What was relevant, and if there were specific artifacts, I would try to tag them when appropriate or
Okay.
make them known.
And in terms of the FetLife account in this case, what would be relevant for categories for a screenshot?
I mean, I would want to look at everything.
What more than what's here?
Again, I don't recall off the top of my head what other fields would be on that. And again, this is a screen capture that I didn't create.
Okay, but if you could create any screen capture, what more would you want?
Objection
regarding-
asked and answered. He said he doesn't know what other fields would have been available.
That's what he stated. I'll sustain the objection. Next one.
Okay. And in terms of dates and times, things like that, can you opine about those?
I see dates and times.
And do you recognize a range of dates?
They don't appear to be in chronological order. I see that they're jumping around.
Would these be maintenance records relating to the FetLife account?
Maintenance records.
Yes.
I'm not sure I follow.
Would these be maintenance emails and communications?
They appear to be incoming communications from FetLife.
Okay, from FetLife to cbrn920@gmail.com?
Yes.
And what, if anything, does that indicate to you?
That email address was receiving communication from FetLife.
Your Honor, I'd move, I think 119 was the last one.
This is 119. that we have on the
119,
screen.
so 116, 117, 118, 119.
All right, we want to start with 116. Could you move back to 116?
If we can go back to what that was, I believe it was the screenshot of CBRN with the 1923.
Do you have any objection to 116?
No, Judge.
Okay, 116 is in evidence. 117, which is the next one. You could, any objection to that?
No, Judge.
Okay, 117, and then 118.
No, Judge.
All right, and 119.
No, Judge.
All right, should, just to clarify, should 119 be under seal since there are names of a lot of individuals that are not involved in this case?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that okay with you, 119 under seal?
Yes.
Okay, 119 is an evidence under seal. We're going to stop right there, Mr. Carroll. I'm going to stop because we're already past
Okay.
5:30, okay? So ladies and gentlemen, we're done for today. We'll start back up at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So don't do any outside research. Don't talk to anybody about the case, okay? We'll see you in the morning. You can stay.